On this edition of Primetime News, President Park Geun-hye is in Washington. The highlight of her 4-day visit will be her 4th summit with U.S. President Barack Obama. Also in the U.S. is Korea's Defense Minister Han Min-koo, whose purpose of visit is to talk about transfer of technologies that could provide a great boost to Seoul's fighter jet developments. Shin Dong-joo, the once ousted older brother, is relevant again in the race for total dominance of Lotte Group as he replaces his younger brother's seat on the board of Lotte's biggest stakeholder. Stay with us for these stories and much more. It's 10 p.m. on a Wednesday here in Korea. Welcome to Primetime News. I'm Daniel Choy. President Park Geun-hye is now in Washington ahead of Friday's summit with her U.S. counterpart Barack Obama. Her official schedule begins Wednesday local time. Hwang Sung-hee, who is traveling with the president, filed this report.
President Park arrived in Washington on Tuesday local time. Topping the agenda for her 4-day trip is her 4th summit with U.S. President Barack Obama set for Friday. The two leaders are expected to discuss bolstering their cooperation against North Korea's nuclear threats and provocations, as well as measures for a stronger alliance. To reaffirm their strong military ties, President Park will make a rare visit to the Pentagon, accompanied by South Korea's Defense Minister Han Min-koo.
President Park will visit the Pentagon to reaffirm the strong defense posture between South Korea and the U.S.
While President Park's trip is largely focused on ensuring peace in Northeast Asia, there are economic aspects as well. The president is accompanied by South Korea's largest business delegation to date, and she will attend a number of business-related events, such as a roundtable with South Korean and American business leaders.
We formed our largest ever business delegation with 166 people. It's significant that 84% of the delegation are representatives from small and mid-sized companies.
President Park will begin her official schedule on Wednesday morning with a wreath-laying ceremony at the Korean War Veterans Memorial. She will then visit the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center to strengthen bilateral cooperation on space issues. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News, Washington.
Also in Washington is South Korea's defense chief. He is there for talks with U.S. defense officials. One of Han Min-koo's main tasks, convincing the U.S. to sign off on the transfer of some key technologies required for Seoul's fighter jet project. Kim Hyun-bin explains why that mission could be difficult to accomplish.
Defense Minister Han Min-koo is expected to request the transfer of 4 rejected technologies considered crucial for the Korea fighter jet project when he meets with his U.S. counterpart Ashton Carter in Washington. Government sources in Seoul say Han will attempt to persuade the U.S. to reconsider the 4 rejected technology transfers as they are deemed critical to the KFX project. South Korea signed a deal last year to acquire 40 F-35A 5th-generation fighter jets with stealth capabilities from Lockheed Martin by 2021. To better guard against North Korean threats. The 4 technologies, including the ASA multi-purpose radar and RF jammers, which are used to disrupt or prevent communication via a broadcasted RF signal, have never been transferred outside of the U.S. The initial request was rejected by the U.S. State Department in April. During a parliamentary hearing in Seoul last week, Mr. Han acknowledged the need to re-request a tech transfer and before his departure, pledged to raise the issue during his U.S. visit. Even with the defense chief's visit, experts say it is highly unlikely the U.S. will transfer the technologies.
In one way, this is an embarrassment. It looks like Seoul is begging for the technologies. The 4 core technologies have never been transferred, so it is highly unlikely Korea will get them.
In August, Han wrote to his U.S. counterpart requesting help regarding the denial of the core technologies, but received no reply. Outside of the KFX project, the South Korean defense chief is expected to discuss and share security information and establish a platform for the upcoming annual Korea-U.S. Security Consultative Meeting in early November. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
The circumstances of the Japanese military setting foot on Korean soil was one of the hot topics at the National Assembly's interpellation session on Wednesday. Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-won says Japan's self-defense forces can only advance into the Korean Peninsula after consultation with the Korean government. Connie Kim tells us more.
Japan's self-defense forces will be able to enter the Korean Peninsula in consultation with the Korean government. Korea's Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-won, during an interpellation session on Wednesday, said the Japanese military could advance into the Korean Peninsula after consulting with the government in cases of inevitable situations and within necessary boundaries. Hwang stressed, however, Korea's principal stance is that Japan's military is not permitted to enter the peninsula without the government's approval, adding no foreign military can come into Korean territory without Korea's permission. Concerns over Japan's greater military role abroad has been mounting since Tokyo's recent passing of new security bills. The security legislation passed last month allows Japan to exercise a right to collective self-defense, permitting Tokyo to fight alongside its allies even when not under attack. Critics say the bills violate the Japanese constitution and could lead Japan into U.S.-led conflicts overseas. Upon passing of the bills, Korea made clear Japan will not be allowed to exercise its right to collective self-defense over issues related to its security and national interests without Seoul's consent. Neighboring China has also voiced strong opposition, urging Japan to act with discretion on military and security issues. Discussion of Tokyo's right to collective self-defense will be up for talks when the defense ministers of Korea and Japan meet next week on the sidelines of the Seoul International Aerospace and Defense Exhibition. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
North Korean provocations was the X factor that could cancel long-awaited inter-Korean family reunions. Fortunately, Pyongyang refrained from such acts, and preparations for the meetings are now forging ahead. A delegation from Seoul will visit the venue for last-minute checkups on Thursday. Here's Song Ji-sun on how the reunion will take place.
The 20th family reunion will take place as scheduled. This comes after the two Koreas held high-level talks last August this year that thought inter-Korean relations in a way to enhance humanitarian exchanges. South Korea's Unification Ministry said Wednesday that the venue is ready to welcome families reuniting for the first time in 65 years.
Our preliminary delegation will depart for the venue on Thursday to fine-tune details for the reunion, like the overall itinerary, routes, and accommodation.
The two rounds of family reunions, starting with the first, will see some 400 South Koreans travel to Mount Kumgang in North Korea to specifically meet 97 North Koreans who sought family living in the South. Following this, another 90 South Koreans, accompanied by other family members, will get to meet their family living in the North. Over the course of 3 days, the families get to reunite 6 times, each lasting 2 hours. On both trips, participants will arrive at Sokcho a day earlier to be briefed on do's and don'ts before traveling to the North. In total, around 650 South Koreans will get to reunite with their separated families. The oldest participant is aged 98. Despite earlier woes that the reunion may not be held had North Korea made any provocative move, South Korea's Unification Ministry says Pyongyang is cooperative in prepping the event, the first since February last year. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
South Korea's rival parties continue to lock horns over plans for a single state-authorized history textbook. While the ruling party says the young generation needs an unbiased history education, opposition blocs vowed to challenge the government's decision. Park Geun-hye has the latest on clashing views on how history should be recorded.
The ruling Saenuri Party reiterated Wednesday that the purpose of a government-issued textbook is to correct distorted descriptions of Korea's modern history, including an alleged lenient view on North Korea, while being harshly critical of South Korea's authoritarian past. The ruling party says it expects a neutral, unbiased history education that engenders future generations with pride and national unity.
We need to fix the biased ideological education given to our students, as it will be an historic error and a big mistake by adults.
regarding the opposition bloc's criticism that only 3 OECD countries, Greece, Turkey, and Iceland, use single government-issued history textbooks. The Conservative Party stressed that Korea is the only divided country among OECD members and that Korea's unique situation should be taken into consideration. But the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy says the government decision goes counter to democracy. The Liberal Party has not only created a special internal committee to halt the government's move, but is also uniting with the Minor Justice Party and 5-term lawmaker Chun Jung-bae, who is expected to soon create a new Liberal Party. On Wednesday, chairman of the New Politics Alliance for Democracy, Moon Jae-in, continued criticizing the government, saying the decision violates Article 31 of Korea's constitution, which says education should be politically neutral.
President Park Geun-hye said the necessity is to teach proper history, but glorifying the history of collaborating with Japanese colonialism and dictatorship cannot be proper.
Since 2003, a system of adopting single government-issued history textbooks for middle and high schools changed to an alternative system, giving government authorization to private publishers. Currently, there are 10 history textbooks for middle schools and 8 for high schools, which all passed government authorization. A recent public survey by Realmeter shows tense confrontation over the matter, with over 47% of respondents favoring returning to government-issued textbooks, while nearly 45% oppose the government's move. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Another political storm has hit both sides of the aisle. A spark starter was an opposition lawmaker who claimed the 2012 presidential election was a fraud. For details, let's turn to Kim Young-gil.
The ruling Saenuri Party strongly rejected on Wednesday the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy lawmakers' remarks that the 2012 presidential election was rigged.
Lawmaker Kang Dong-won should offer an official apology. What's more, our party will take all the strongest legal measures against such allegations.
The ruling party urged Kang to step down from his position as a lawmaker and vowed to send Kang to the Parliamentary Ethics Committee over his groundless rumors. Saenuri's floor leader Won also said the NPD should oust Kang from the party for such defamation against the president and the Korean people. However, the NPD said Kang's comments made during Tuesday's parliamentary session have nothing to do with the party's stance and has no intentions of defending him.
Our party's spokesperson already said on Tuesday that it was the lawmaker's personal thoughts. I think we've given the answer.
Meanwhile, the presidential office of Cheongwade said Kang's remarks were inappropriate at a time when the president left for the U.S. for summit talks, and that it was a defamation against those who voted for President Park in the 2012 election. President Park became Korea's first female president after edging out her rival from the main opposition party, Moon Jae-in, by a margin of 3.5 percentage points. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Let's shift gears now to a different story. Lotte Group Chairman Shin Dong-joo, the younger son of Korea's largest retail conglomerate, has lost a majority of his leadership in one of the latest moves led by his older brother Dong-joo. Shin Se-min has the latest on the group's power struggle.
Lotte Group Chairman Shin Dong-joo was discharged from the board of Japan-based Kwanghyunsa Corporation, the biggest stakeholder of unlisted Lotte Holdings that controls the entire Lotte Group. Shareholders of Kwanghyunsa Corporation held a meeting in Tokyo on Wednesday that gave rise to the dismissal of the younger Shin from the board and appointed Shin Dong-joo, the elder brother, as chief executive officer there. Through his deputy spokesperson's announcement at a post-meeting press conference, Shin Dong-joo strengthened his position.
As the CEO and the largest shareholder of Kwanghyunsa Corporation, I, Shin Dong-joo, have secured 28.1% control in Lotte Holdings, largely owned by Kwanghyunsa.
Shin Dong-joo alone has secured a majority stake in Kwanghyunsa after receiving a single share handover from the founder, Shin Gyuk-ho. On the other hand, Dong-bin, the younger son, holds less than a 40% stake within the company. While reiterating his position, the elder sibling also said he would straighten matters within Lotte Group, adding he would concentrate on seizing control of the retail giant. Following the decision, Lotte Group said in a statement the result does not undermine Chairman Shin Dong-been's control over the retail conglomerate, as Kwang Yun-sa is a family-owned company that owns a fraction of shares of Lotte Holdings. The majority of Lotte Holdings still supports the current chairman Shin Dong-been, a confidence shown since the shareholders' meeting back in August. With the turnover, the race to the ownership of the retail giant looks to last for a while, as two siblings, both overconfident, are thriving to secure an inch more of their position within the group. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Today is the last day of Korea's Black Friday, and participating outlets saw a significant growth in revenue. The two-week sales campaign is looking like a relative success. Lee Soo-eun looks into the effectiveness of Korea's biggest discount event to date.
Shoppers in excitement, bustling to see what they can get.
I got winter jackets for family, a bag, shoes, and a dress. They were on sale.
It was a scene almost extinct in Seoul's department stores this year, especially in the face of a virus outbreak in spring. But shoppers returned to grab their bargains during Korea Black Friday, a government-driven discount campaign run from October 1st to 14th and involving around 34,000 stores in 200 traditional markets. The Trade Ministry said Wednesday that since the beginning of the event to the 11th, the three department store chains, Hyundai, Lotte, and Shinsegae, recorded an average of 25% boost in sales. Online shopping malls saw an even bigger growth at 27%. Meanwhile, the three mega grocery chains E-Mart, Home Plus, and Lotte Mart recorded a 15% increase compared to last year's post-Chuseok sales. As for traditional markets, 78% of merchant associations that responded to a survey by the Small and Medium Business Administration said they saw more than a 10% growth in revenue. While some said that more preparation and publicity would have helped boost sales further, all respondents said that they would participate again if another Black Friday were held in the future. Lee Soo-eun, Arirang News.
With the first summit between Korea, China, and Japan in more than 3 years coming up, experts from the three countries are seeing eye to eye on the need for a stronger trilateral cooperation, especially on the economic front. Our Kwon So-ah shed light on some of the highlights of that discussion.
The core countries of Northeast Asia, South Korea, China, and Japan have common interests when it comes to boosting their trilateral partnership, but it's also common knowledge that they face obstacles in doing so due to remaining disputes on historical and territorial issues. Ways to overcome those barriers have been discussed at a conference Wednesday, where the important role of economic cooperation was in the spotlight.
Codependency has to be raised further, for example with a fast establishment of a Korea-China-Japan free trade agreement. Of course, it's not easy though, with a lot of competition developing too.
This, according to experts, has a lot to do with mega FTAs, such as the recently inked TPP, which currently only Japan out of the three nations is part of. But on that front, there are optimistic views on future entrances.
If Korea in the future becomes a TPP member, Korea and Japan will 99.9% have a bilateral FTA too.
I don't think that TPP is conflicting with China.
Trade between Korea, China, and Japan already amounts to nearly $700 billion. Participants at the meeting said the Northeast Asian region has the potential to become the largest economic bloc in the future. But according to one expert, considering China's growth slowing down, Japan's deflationary spiral, and Korea entering into low growth, it may be time to lay aside political issues for the time being.
If we would establish a 30-year moratorium, we could focus on economic development in Union and then get back to sensitive political issues.
The discussions on how Korea, China, and Japan can realize a vision of common prosperity and peace come at a crucial time, as the three countries are just weeks away from the first trilateral summit in more than 3 years. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
And now for headlines from around the world, we turn to our Bruce Harrison in the News Center.
Good evening, Daniel. Here's what we're following. Live from Las Vegas, Democratic candidates for the U.S. presidency took their first shots at each other on TV. Israel and Palestine are trading blame over recent escalating violence, which Israelis have dubbed knife terror. And the Pope has apologized for scandals that have plagued the Catholic Church.
Well, Bruce, first of all, I guess it would have been very different, a debate, when it's Trump-free.
Trump-free debate, yeah. A little less drama, a little more policy talk. The Democrats got down to business, and there were even moments of camaraderie. Hillary Clinton has been hounded for months over her use of a private email server while she was Secretary of State. Her challenger, Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont, came to her rescue. He said everyone needs to move on from the email scandal and start discussing the real issues facing America. Sanders has been gaining on Clinton in the polls, in part due to his populist appeal.
We do need a political revolution in this country where millions of people who today are not engaged in the political process. They don't even vote.
Sanders is a Democratic socialist who sought to peg himself as the true liberal in the debate. Clinton promised in the debate to raise workers' wages and make the wealthy pay higher taxes. The two leading candidates were joined by former Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley, former Rhode Island Governor Lincoln Chafee, and former U.S. Senator James Webb of Virginia. Israel and Palestine are trading blame for escalating violence that peaked this week when several people were stabbed and shot to death. The most serious attacks against Jews took place Tuesday in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, while attacks against Arabic residents were reported in northern Israeli cities. Israel is calling the month-long wave of violence the knife terror. Some analysts believe Palestinians have lashed out because they feel Israel is trying to prevent them from visiting Temple Mount, a site considered holy by both Jews and Muslims.
And at present, I don't think there's any way to have negotiations like that when the Israeli people are under siege like this.
The Arab League has called for the protection of the Palestinian people by an international body. It said their national rights have been breached amid the latest wave of violence. The word scandal has often been associated with the Catholic Church over the past decade. On Tuesday, Pope Francis apologized again, this time for recent events that have brought shame to the Church. Francis asked parishioners for their forgiveness at the start of his weekly general audience in St. Peter's Square.
The word of Jesus is strong today. Woe to the world because of scandals. Jesus is a realist. He says it is inevitable that there will be scandals, but woe to the man who causes them.
The Pope was apparently referring to a Polish Monsignor who came out as gay earlier this month and subsequently lost his job. The apology also appeared to refer to allegations that a high-ranking clergyman in Rome was soliciting male prostitutes. And that's a glimpse of the world today. Have a great evening.
Hello, I'm Lee Ji-hyun with the latest weather updates. A chilly start turned into a mild afternoon today, and tomorrow is shaping up to be as mild as today, with highs forecast to be about 4 degrees higher than the average temperatures, topping out at 24 here in Seoul. And skies will be fairly clear across the nation, but inland regions could wake up to another morning fog, so be sure to drive with extra caution when you hit the road. On that note, here are the readings for tomorrow. Seoul will start out the day at 12 degrees Celsius before getting up to 24, and Gwangju, Busan will also hit 24, while Daegu tops out at 25. And as for the other regions, Daejeon and Jeju Island will see a high of 24 and 23, while Dokdo peaks at 20. Fall leaves in Odessa Mountain have peaked already, while Seoraksan Mountain will change to full autumn colors by this weekend. And the weather is forecast to remain clear and relatively warm through the rest of the week and into the weekend. So climbers, rejoice, but beware of the dry conditions. That's all for the weather. Good night.
That's primetime news for you today. Thank you for watching. Depending on where you're tuning in from, good night or good day.